I'm called Wandwas Robert. I'm the district HIV/AIDS focal person in Mbale, but sometimes I support Uganda AIDS Commission in the region to deliver information on HIV. I'm here to share the HIV situation in the eastern region. I have a number of districts whose information I have here which I want us to share so that we know that HIV is still here and is still infecting more people. I know we have focused so much energies on the COVID-19 prevention, on the Ebola prevention, but we are forgetting that HIV is also still with us here. I want to share these statistics per district. For example, in Busia, the prevalence is 4.8. In Tororo, it is 6.0. And you can see Busia and Tororo, they are close each other. You can see the other one is 6, the other one is 4.8. Then Namisindwa is 1.9. Then Manafa is 2.4. Mbale is 4.3. Abududa is 1.7. Budaka is 2.6. Sironko is 3.0. And then Buko is 1.5. Kapchora is 1.6. And then Bukedea is 2.2. And then Kwen is 1.5. Bulambuli is 2.2. Amuria is 3.4. Serele is 2.0. Kaberemaido is 4.0. And Butaleja is 1.5. And then when we go to the other side of Karamoja, Karamoja has, of course, the lowest. Amudat is 0.7. Nabila 2, Nakapiripiriti is 1.3. Napak 1.0. And then Nabila Tuk 0.2. Abim 2.4. Moroto 1.8. Kotido 0.8. Kabong 0.7. And then Karenga is 1.1, Butebo is 5.6, Ngora is 2.2, Kumi 2.7, Katakwi 5.6, and then Palisa 1.5, Kalaki 2.7, and then Chibuku 1.5. Those are the statistics maybe for those who are listening to us in whatever district you come from. Then you can be able to scan through and see how is it that we are faring in this region. But you'll realize that for us around the Elgon zone, you will find that it is Tororo which has the biggest prevalence. Of course, Mbale is 4.3, Bududa 1.7, Manafa 2.4, Sironko 3.0, Bulambuli 2.2, Kapchora 1.6, Kwen 1.5, Tororo 6.0, Butaleja 1.5, Busia 4.8, Palisa 1.5, and then Budaka 2.6, Kibuku 1.5. So when you take an average, we are around 2.6 there. But you will find that when you look at Mbale, you look at Tororo, and then maybe you look at Sironko, you will see that, and then Busia, their prevalences are so high. But of course, when we do an average is what takes us to that. And I want to say that, of course, Tororo has the highest, and when we look through, the Kwen, Butaleja, Palisa, and Chibuku, they have the lowest, which is 1.5, and the Tororo is 6.0. So this one gives us a worry that the more people are still getting infected. Of course, when we look at the new infections, you will find that the younger people again are getting more infected than the adults, especially age between 15 and 24 years. You will find that when we are looking at the new infections, the younger people are contributing about 58.6% of the new infections. So which means that the younger people are getting more infected than the adults. And definitely what is causing this is because the younger people has been discovered they have a higher percentage of multiple sexual partners. 56.8%, 58.6%. multiple sexual partners in the younger people. That is what is increasing the infections. And of course, one other thing which is causing high infections within the younger people is that they have low risk perception. It's like they have their peers and they have no consciousness about their own peers that they can be positive and they infected them. So low risk perception is again increasing the infections in our younger people. Of course, our adults, the multiple sexual partners at 36.7%. With the adults, 36.7% is the multiple sexual partner percentage we have in the district. And of course, we know that most of the infections pass through the multiple sexual partners. And then when we look at those who are reporting use of condoms, we are having this high number of multiple sexual partners, but we have only 33.4% who are using condoms to protect themselves. So meaning that a whole over 60% they are not using condoms to protect themselves from HIV infections. And definitely this is a big worry. And of course, this one is also associated with the stigma. And we know very well that stigma sometimes deters people from getting services so that they can be able to know and protect themselves against HIV. So we are talking this because we want our people to know that HIV is still a problem and more people are still getting infected. When we talk about the year, only last year, 54,000 people in Uganda got infected with HIV. But of course, we categorize them. The men who got infected with HIV in last year was 16,000 for men, 31,000 for women, and 60,000 for young people. Of course, for the men, we are talking about 15 years plus, there are 16,000. Women 15 years plus were 31,000. You can see that for the women is more than times 2 of the men. So meaning that women are more at risk of getting infected than the men. And then the children between 0 and 14 years were 6,000. So this number is still too big for us in Uganda in order to fight this HIV that we can achieve our vision of 2030. I see that we might not be able to achieve this vision because more people are still getting infected. But of course, we know that in Uganda, about 1.4 million people are living with HIV. And definitely, out of this 1.4 million, men are 500,000, women are 840,000, and the children 0 to 14 are 88,000. So meaning that we are still having very big numbers of people who are living with HIV, who need services. But of course, when we look at people who are dying of HIV in Uganda, 17,000 people die on annual basis. 17,000 die on annual basis. And of course, when we break them down into categories, 7,100 men died last year of HIV, and the women were 6,300. And then we look at the children were 4,000. When it comes to death, you can see the infection, women is the highest number. But when you come to people who are dying more of HIV, again are the men. Why? Because the men have what they call bad health-seeking behaviors. We the men, we don't normally go quickly to seek for services when we are sick until we are really in a bad shape that we want to go and see a doctor. So those who die of HIV, men die more than the women because men are 7,100 and the women are only 6,300 and the children are 4,000. So meaning that we are not doing so well. When it comes to our targets of 95, 95, 95, Presidential Fast Track Initiative, we are not doing so badly, but we are also not doing so well. When we talk about people knowing their status, those who are positive, who know their status, we are at 89% in Uganda. And though when we talk about enrollment, because after people know their status, they should make a decision to be enrolled on treatment. Enrollment, we are at 82%, meaning that we are still struggling because we are supposed to be at 95. And then when we look at suppression, again, we are not doing so well in terms of suppression, because suppression we are at 78%, meaning that we are not doing so well. There are people whom we enroll on treatment and then later they fall out. They are not adhering to what? To their treatment. So in this, it is giving us a big task that we need to continue working hard. We have to sensitize the people. We have to ensure that people access the services, and we have to continue talking about HIV so that we can ensure that our people can be able to take precaution and prevent themselves. When we talk about the people living with HIV, the trends, I think we can look at now the trends. When we talk about all population put together, whether adults, young people, men, women, you will see that in 2010, there were 1.2 million who were living with HIV. In 2015, it increased to 1.3, which means it grew up by 100,000. When we talk about 2020, it was at 1.4. So meaning that trend is just increasing. Instead of us expecting it to drop, it is going up. But when we break down in men, women, and young people, the men 15 years plus, in 2010, they were 600,000. In 2015, they were 710. And in 2020, they were 820, which means, again, the number is consistently growing. It is not dropping. And then when we look at, that was the women. When we look at the men 15 plus, in 2010, they were 400,000. In 2015, they were 460. And in 2020, they were 490. Still, it is giving the picture of consistent increment. So meaning that we are not really doing so well. When we look at younger people, especially between age 15 and 24, in 2010, there were 190 living with HIV. In 2015, there were still 190. And in 2020, there were 170. You can see that within the younger people, there was a drop. There was a drop in 2020, meaning that here, the people, I think there was some kind of improvement. Between 2010 and 2015, it stagnated. And then in 2020, it indicated a drop. So meaning that maybe some of these young people between 190 and 170, they might have died off or they got lost. So definitely it means that there's something. And when we look at the children 0 to 14, in 2010 there were 160,000 living with HIV. In 2015, they registered a drop to 130, and then in 2020 it was 98,000. So meaning that one has shown also a consistent drop. So meaning that in that area we are improving, but otherwise I want just to let our listeners know that HIV is still here with us, and we need to really work so hard to ensure that we can be able to reduce the infections so that we can achieve the country's vision of 2030, ending HIV and its effects in Uganda. So definitely, I think we shall be continuing to share some of this information in bits, because we can't share all the information today. And in our next episode, we are going again to look at another area where we are going to look at the statistics, so that we know that surely we still have a big problem. And otherwise, without statistics, we can't be able to tell how terrible the situation is. So this is what I wanted to share with our listeners. Wandwas Robert is my name, and I'm the District HIV/AIDS focal person in Mbale, but I also support Uganda AIDS Commission in the region. Thank you.